We are here to lift up everyone else that has either been on the margins or left behind.
Melinda French Gates is stepping down as the co-chair of one of the world's largest private charitable foundations and is now shifting gears to focus on Pivotal Ventures, a venture capital firm she founded in 2015. Its goal? To direct capital to people outside the mostly white, male business startup ecosystem.
I look for partners who are brave and bold and willing to lead with a new idea.
French Gates started her career at Microsoft in 1987 and rose to the position of General Manager of Information Products. But helping develop and hone a vision for a company that would go on to revolutionize computing and the world had its challenges.
I almost quit 2 years in because of what you call this bro culture.
By 2000, she co-founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which aims to reduce health inequities in low-income countries. And thanks to an annual donation of $3.1 billion from friend and legendary investor Warren Buffett, it catapulted French Gates into the upper echelon of the philanthropic world. Now at the age of 59 and with a reported net worth of $13.3 billion, French Gates has opted to forge her own path, launching the next chapter of her career with a different focus and vision, a world of gender equality. Yahoo Finance sat down with Melinda French Gates at Pivotal Ventures headquarters in Kirkland, Washington, to explore how she views her leadership path and strategy to end gender inequality. At this point in Pivotal Ventures' life, what are you up to here?
I'm really trying to advance women's power in the United States and people of color, because we still are not nearly far enough on women's power in the United States. And in fact, I think there's been a rollback, as we see with the Dobbs decision and other, of many things.
You've been really out in front of this and doing this work, this impactful work, for many years. Why did you get started in it?
Particularly as I was traveling to low-income countries, the barriers are just right there in front of you. They're not unseen when you're in a low-income country. But as I would turn the question back on myself and say, how far are we really in the United States? I realized there was just so much more work to do. We're still 208 years away from equality in this country for women, and we're the highest income country in the world.
That's according to a report by the World Economic Forum, which evaluated gender gaps in pay, workforce participation, education, health, and political participation. French Gates wants to shrink those gender gaps in the U.S. by 2030. That's why in 2019, she announced a $1 billion pledge over 10 years to achieve this goal.
I always say that young men can look up and see maybe 36 archetypes of men in finance, or 36 archetypes of men in media, right? Or in any industry. Young girls don't see 36 archetypes of females in politics or in economics or in finance. And it's hard to be what you can't see.
What do you think is still holding that back?
It's the caregiving that they do at home for young children or for their aging parents. That predominantly falls to women more than men. And so it keeps them from the productive work hours of other things they might want to do, working on their own health or working in society. And quite honestly, also what they face in terms of abuse in the workplace, or tensions in the workplace, or stress or expectations. That's just very different for women than for men. And so those are the two biggest barriers that hold them back. And yet, as I see women advancing economically, we see the effects of that, advancing in politics, advancing in terms of telling women's stories coming out of Hollywood. It is beginning to change society, but I want to get more women there faster and sooner.
To date, Pivotal Ventures has invested in over 150 organizations like Ellevest, a wealth management company by women for women, founded by former banking executive Sally Krawcheck, and the National Partnership for Women and Families, a nonprofit seeking to attain equality for women. These private sector companies, venture funds, nonprofits, and advocacy groups are game changers in 4 key sectors: finance, politics, technology, and storytelling. The collection of leaders that you are invested in, is there a tie that binds? What makes them successful from your vantage point?
They are looking for diversity in their own portfolio. And they're saying, how can we look at VC with a bit of a different lens? You'd be amazed how many women and people of color I have spoken to who have run the gauntlet on Sand Hill Road, and people just literally don't understand their businesses because they don't have a person of color in their venture capital space, or they don't have a woman, so they don't understand the markets.
The numbers clearly back French Gates up. According to a recent McKinsey report, companies founded solely by women garnered less than 2% of the total capital invested in VC-backed startups. And only 0.1% of VC funds went to Black and Latino women founders.
And so I'm trying to prove out that there are gigantic markets that are being left behind. And guess what? I don't want to leave money off the table. I think there are places we can invest and I can make money.
Within the VC space, Pivotal Ventures makes both indirect and direct investments into companies, seeking Series A, B, and C funds and investment rounds into new businesses. 100% of the funds it invests in have female general partners, while over 60% have at least one general partner of color. If a leader, a female leader, comes to you and says, Melinda, I want you to invest in me, what qualities are you looking for?
Well, I look for what change they're trying to create in society. Do I think I can get a return on my money? And who are they like as a leader? Do they have a proven track record? And are they taking some risk? I think so often we don't look at females, particularly in the VC space, of being willing to take risk, and yet they are.
I know you've also been talking a lot about having more women in politics, senators, governors. How do you see things? Where is that situation right now?
I think one thing we don't look at as a country is there are 7,000 seats in state houses. And states control a lot of resources and can make very good policy. Sometimes they actually get out in front of the federal government, actually often.
Currently, women make up more than 50% of the United States population, but hold only 28% of the seats in Congress. One estimate says it could take 84 years before we reach gender parity in Congress.
Having those seats represent all of society, I think, again, they will make different policies and laws. But I see those 7,000 seats as needing to be diverse. And ultimately, I think in the United States, it's also time to have a female president at some point.
Why hasn't that happened, Melinda?
That is the million-dollar question. I think we are biased. I am biased. You are biased. When a person walks into the room, we have built-in beliefs because of what society has told us. And so we haven't really seen a woman in the United States in that position before. And so it's actually hard for us to imagine in some ways. So we have to break through these barriers, but I believe if we have more women in state houses, more female governors, more women on the Hill, you are going to see a female in the White House in my lifetime.
Melinda, you should run.
No. No. I'm a new grandmother, and I love my job at Pivotal and my job at the foundation, so no thank you.
Before French Gates assumed the titles of grandmother and mother, or CEO and founder, she started her career in tech in her teens after she learned how to code when her father bought her an Apple III computer. You seem clearly very passionate about these issues, Pivotal Ventures, and the work you're doing here. Growing up, did you see yourself doing this?
No. You can't really imagine. You think you can imagine what you're going to be when you grow up, but you really can't. I certainly wanted to be a female business leader. I grew up in Dallas, and I would watch back-to-back Dallas and Dynasty, and I was like, I don't really want to be like those women who dress up for dinner. Like, okay, that's nice, but I was like, oh, that character, Alexa Carrington, she was a powerful businesswoman.
Stephen, you don't get rich if you don't take chances.
I was like, I want to be like her.
After graduating from Duke University, French Gates joined Microsoft in its infancy as one of only a few female managers. Although she stayed at the company for 9 years, she initially disliked Microsoft's culture and how it influenced her leadership development. How did this culture in the early 80s when you were at Microsoft, how did that shape your view on leadership?
It shaped it profoundly, actually. I had a great career there. I loved the hard-charging pace. I loved that we were changing society. We knew we were changing the world. But when I got to Microsoft, there was a leadership style that was very debate-oriented, just constantly debate and rough and tumble. And I almost left because I didn't actually like who I was becoming outside of work. Like, I could play the game. I knew how to play the game. I knew how to run the meeting. But then I just said, wait a minute, is this who I want to be? And it wasn't. And so luckily, I had other offers, from consulting firms. I was like, I can go get another job. I'll just try being myself. But I thought I would fall flat on my face. But it turned out that by being myself and having a different type of leadership, I could attract all kind of talent around the company who didn't want to have that rough and tumble culture.
The bro culture French Gates is referring to is still rampant in the tech industry. According to a 2021 survey by Trust Radius, 72% of women in tech report experiencing a prevalent bro culture at work, signifying gender discrimination. Why are we still talking about this in 2024?
Because there is a bro culture at work. And I think you get these industries where when over time they become very male-dominated, then the guys expect that everybody's going to act the way they act. And when they don't see somebody leading or acting the way they are, there's pushback, and they won't be readily accepting of women or women's leadership styles.
To the young female executive in tech experiencing this culture still, what's your advice to them?
Surround yourself with other good men who have your values and other good women. And ask the women and the men, not just for mentorship, but when something comes up at the table, the undercut, the slight, the repeating your idea as if it's their own, ask someone to speak up. It doesn't have to be in a harsh way, but we have to point out these biases when they happen around the table and make it so that it's not okay.
But the hard-charging bro culture didn't stop Microsoft from becoming a financial juggernaut. By 1996, the company reported $8.7 billion in revenue. That same year, French Gates left Microsoft to focus on growing her family and philanthropic work.
I never, ever could have imagined that I would be at the nexus of this wealth that had been amassed from Microsoft and Warren Buffett's wealth from Berkshire Hathaway, and that I would be part of figuring out how to give that back to society in a very strategic way.
How have you been shaped by Warren Buffett and his views on leadership and even life?
When both Bill and I were struggling with, my gosh, we're getting all these letters, amazing causes, a child who has cancer, etc., he would say, pick your bullseye, pick your target and your bullseye, and work in that in your circle of competence and get good at it. And he said, then you won't feel so bad about the pieces that you let fall away.
Since 2006, Buffett has donated more than $36 billion to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, helping the institution give away $77.6 billion in grants since its inception. And in 2022, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation ranked #1 among the largest private charitable foundations in the United States, giving $7 billion in charitable support, more than the Lilly Endowment, the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation, the Ford Foundation, and Walton Family Foundation combined.
He saw in the early days of the foundation that I was struggling, that I had a child at that point, and I was sitting on the floor playing with my Jen, who is now 27, and he said to me, I know what you're doing at the foundation, and I respect it greatly. He said, and this is your most important job. And to have a man say that to me, to give me permission to be a great mom, because I think almost every woman, I know I struggled with, how much do I work? Am I there for the kids? How do I do this? How do I do that? That was huge.
After 27 years of marriage in 2021, Melinda and Bill announced their split in a joint statement on X, saying they, quote, "We'll continue our work together at the foundation, but no longer believe we can grow together as a couple in this next phase of our lives." I mean, how is like leading at the foundation when you're in that room and you have to make tough decisions with Bill in the room?
So one thing I would say about the foundation is it is a beautiful piece of glue in our lives and has been for a long time. And so people didn't realize that we were even running the foundation when we were having difficult times in the marriage. And I would say at times it held us together. We were even running the foundation as we were negotiating a divorce behind the scenes that nobody knew about. And somehow we were both able to rise to our higher selves, to at least run the foundation. Not always in the specifics of various things at home, but in that piece. So I think we've both kept that principle as we've made this transition. And I would say Mark Sussman, the CEO, has been remarkable about changing the decision-making, because we're not making decisions at home together as much anymore. And I would say, we both show up and try to be our best selves. I wouldn't say we achieve it every day, but I can sit there and even if there's something that agitates me or makes me a little upset, I can say, this is not the time for me to work through that emotion at this table. Let me wait till I get back home by myself.
So you can still show up your authentic leadership self.
Definitely. No, I won't show up unless I can be my authentic self. And in fact, I would say I have become even more and more my authentic self the last 5 years there.
French Gates will leave the foundation armed with $12.5 billion to use toward her philanthropic work. As French Gates looks ahead to the next chapter of her career, investing in social responsibility that yields a financial return is at the forefront of pivotal ventures.
I think getting society right so that it reflects all of who we are will help all of us get to be and work in society the way we want to and to ultimately thrive. These are new ideas for society and not everybody's for them, right? Some people think, well, I'm going to lose something if women or people of color come up. It's actually not true, but they will push back on those ideas.
What do you think your leadership legacy will be?
I think it will be that I helped further others, women and people of color, in lots of different sectors so that people can see that these change makers, that a group coming together can change society, and that we can see women and people of color at all levels of industry so that, when young girls look up, just like young boys, they see these people who look like them.